My name is Jill Nagy Reynolds, and I am with the SBA Columbus District Office. And the webinar training today that we are partnering with the Ohio Apex Accelerator at Ohio University is doing business with the state of Ohio. So I hope everybody is super excited to learn about how to do business with the state of Ohio, just the hows, the whats, the whens, the wheres, the whys. And this is just part of a series of trainings that we've been doing in January, February with the Ohio Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. So just a couple of logistical things before I get started. I am joined by my colleague, Shonda Harris. She's also in the Columbus District Office. We have Sharon Hopkins, who's the program manager for the Ohio Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. And we also have Carolyn Storms, who is the business development specialist for the SBA Indiana District Office. So you are in good hands today to learn about doing business with the state, but also if you had other, general questions about doing business with the government, you could please put questions in the chat. I do recommend to stay away from really industry specific questions because this is a more general training. If you have more industry specific questions, I recommend creating an appointment with your Apex Accelerator counselor. So we will be monitoring the chat as we go through. We'll try and get those questions addressed as our presenter, James Yagodich, is going through it. So we want this to be interactive, but we do want it to go through the chat just to keep us all on schedule. So without further ado, I am going to introduce you to James Yagodich. He is the Training Academy Manager with the Ohio Department of Administrative Services. He is a wealth of knowledge, and we're very happy to have him here today. So thank you, James. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Shonda. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I know we've got a great partnership, and working with you guys is always a great experience. So thank you. Again, my name is James Yagodich. I am part of the Ohio Department of Administrative Services. Within that, I am in the Office of Procurement Services, where we focus on purchasing, procurement, solicitations for statewide contracts. So my goal today is to, like Jill had mentioned, is to kind of explore some key areas, debunk some myths maybe that may be existing for maybe if you're thinking how things work, and just kind of showing you the outline of how we do business so you can do business with us. Feel free to drop questions in the chat. I'll try to manage those as we go along. Obviously, anytime during the presentation, I'll be checking that, so feel free to drop those in there. All right, save all our time getting moving forward. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm gonna just want to say hi, thank you to everybody. I'll turn my camera off so it won't be a distractor, because I do talk with my hands sometimes, and we don't want anybody to get too dizzy over there. So, but again, like I said, James Yagodich, Office of Procurement Services Training Academy, where we do focus on outreach and education for procurement practices to all our bidders and suppliers who are interested in doing business with the state of Ohio, as well as we do focus on our internal agencies, making sure they're aware of what needs to happen so that you have better opportunities, and partnering with our local political subdivisions, everything from the city of Columbus, Cincinnati, to the local townships and counties that are across all 88 counties within the state of Ohio. So what does this picture look like? A maze. State government comes to mind when I look at this. And sometimes it's hard to find your way through it. I've been there. Maybe you're starting off with a business where you're an experienced business owner who is looking at what the next steps are. How do I understand this process? And my goal today is to kind of outline it and kind of put some markers along the way to show where maybe you're making progress. You're going in the right direction. You're almost there to the finish line. So one of the next things we think about when we think about state government is, what exactly does the state buy? And I can tell you, we buy everything. We buy everything from electronics to fleet vehicles to clothing to pharmaceuticals, food, personal services, you name it, we buy it, and we buy a lot of it. Let me talk about the number dollar signs around that. We do purchase as a state with 125 individual state agencies, boards, and commissions. They do buy a wide variety of supplies and services just to maintain their business operations, buildings, office supplies. So if you think about what your business does, just on those administrative types of things, we're buying that on a larger bulk. $5 billion is what the agencies spend approximately across all the variety of supplies services that are required for the daily operation. Within that, about $1.5 billion are associated with a addressable spend. Those are the items, those really common things that we're putting solicitations out there for, to things that give you those opportunities. I'm going to talk a little bit about those, where you can come into the picture, and understand how the picture actually is painted. So to do that, we have to talk about purchasing requirements. Each state agency has to follow a certain number of things. And to us, it seems like it's a hurdle. We have to jump over one, jump over to the next, jump over to the next, and so on. Because transparency is key in state government. We want to make sure that as we're buying things and spending taxpayer dollars, that we are going through those necessary hurdles to make sure that we are spending that money appropriately. So by doing so, we have a certain set of requirements. State agencies are actually required by law, the Ohio Revised Code, if you're looking for something really interesting to read. 125.035 focuses on our purchasing practices, where we have to purchase from a requisite program where they provide state resources if the product or service is available. We do have a host of procurement programs that we have to look at first. First one is our Ohio Penal Industries, the OPI. It is an inmate work program through the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, where OPI provides items such as furniture, janitorial products. They do asbestos removal, heavy equipment maintenance, things of that nature, where we have to go through those specific channels to make sure if what we're looking to buy has anything that's available from them. Then next in that list is the Community Rehabilitation Program, which is another legal requirement for each state agency, as well as all of our political subdivisions across the state. Now, this program allows nonprofit organizations that employ adults with disabilities the opportunity to have contracts with the state. So CRP suppliers offer items such as writing instruments, latex gloves, janitorial, call centers, landscaping services, a large list of items that are out there. In addition, the opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. Now, this is the State of Ohio agency that partners with Ohioans with disabilities to achieve quality employment and independence. This agency works with partners in business, education, and nonprofit organizations to help facilitate a customized employment plan for Ohioans with disabilities, as well as help Ohio companies recruit and retain employees with disabilities. We also have part of the requisite program, our Office of Information and Technology, where they develop contracts for various computer hardware, software, and services that are required to maintain our overall business. And then the state printing and mail services, where it's a full service print shop where they provide printing, mailing, fulfillment services. And in that list, it kind of wraps up is the Ohio Pharmacy Services, where we purchase the pharmaceuticals for various state agencies. So kind of a list, not too long, but just long enough. But again, making you aware of when we have to purchase. I think sometimes the myth is, why are they purchasing from them? Why can't I sell my goods or service? Because we have to make sure that these particular entities, we purchase for them first, if what we're looking for is provided by them. Now, in the case that it's not available and they don't provide that, our next step is where we're required to look at our current established contracts for those products, supplies, and services before going elsewhere. Now, some of these contracts are mandatory, and then some are optional use. So again, it's like kind of a hurdle. That first step is we have to check box A. The next step, if it's not there, we've had to go look at the current ones, the ones that are actually gone through a process, people bid on and actually have under contract obligations to purchase from them. But let's say that object that we're looking for, whether it's personal service or it's a particular good we're looking for, isn't available from those catalogs. Now is where we take that step where you, the future bidder, the future supplier, can step into the process. We actually put together a solicitation and we look to create a new contract. Created in a competitive selection process where we get open bidding and people competing against each other to provide the best value for the state. And the types of competitive selection processes that we use, we've got three main ones. First one is that invitation to bid, where it's a clear, specific request. So let's say it's a software. Let's say something like Adobe Acrobat. I need one license for Adobe Acrobat on my computer, and that's very clear. It's very specific. We put that out to bid, and the lowest responsive and responsible bid that comes in wins the bid. It's a rather quick process where, as long as we're meeting the submission, the request of what's out there, meeting the specifications, and the lowest bid, that particular supplier would win that bid. So pretty common activity that we see across the state. Those quick purchases, we're being very specific, and we do have quite a few of them. Now, the ones that aren't as few, but they take a little more time, are those requests for proposal. Now, these specifications are not clearly defined, and they're intended to be that way, and that's to provide the supplier with providing us with potential solutions. Not every solution is guaranteed. Not everything is fiscally responsible within that process. And so one of the things we have to do, we have to score responses. So we call it a two envelope process. And that two envelope process includes the technical and a financial. We always look at the technical. We score that based upon a grid on what would be the best value. Multiple people are part of the process. We'll review it, put in our feedback, score it accordingly. And then once decided, then we go look at the cost, because sometimes the cost is important to keep out of mind, because there may be a great value for the state, but it's too expensive as compared to something maybe too good to be true and the price is low. Those are things we have to be aware of too. So that best value of the state kind of takes all that into consideration to make sure that everything is transparent and we're spending that dollar on something that is tangible, not into something that has to be grown or additional cost down the road.
James,
Yes.
I'm sorry, there's a
No.
lot of questions about DAS contracts. Are you going to talk about that in the presentation? How to get on a DAS contract?
Yeah, I'm kind of heading that
Okay,
direction.
that
Yeah.
that is going to go there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is a couple of industry specific questions like I do consulting. How do I find consulting work or so
No problem.
is okay, we're going
Great
to talk about that too.
questions. Yeah, I'm gonna touch on those and kind of what we're gonna get to, just kind of setting the storyline here, how we have to do business, and we're kind of starting that point where you, the supplier, can look for those opportunities where we need a particular service, such as consulting or personal services, maybe accounting services, or we're looking for specific widgets. Maybe it's we need copiers or TVs or desks or what have you, and kind of walk through that and kind of how to be a part of those processes. So we'll
All right,
touch on
thank
that.
you.
Yeah. All right. So with that, like I said, a couple of different options. for our selection process. The third is a reverse auction. Now, commodity sensitive here, not something we see all the time, or because there's not a lot of commodities that we focus on, because there may not be a need for that or the ability to do that. We do a pre-qualified supplier list on these reverse auctions, making sure that they're able to meet that qualification. And then it's just like in like your normal auction where the price goes up, the reverse auction implies we go backwards. We go to the lowest possible the bid that supplier is willing to bid on that particular item. I think the last one we did is a number of years ago where we did the license plate, the steel for all of our plates in the state of Ohio. Um, it's not a commodity that we see all the time, but it was an opportunity to take that and apply that to that. So, but most of our main competitive selection processes are the invitation to bid, where there's just really clear, specific needs, where the lowest bid, the best responsive supplier wins the bid, quick process. But again, then the more involved, need some more information, a best solution. In those cases, I think I'll just use the accounting system, accounting software that for the whole state of Ohio or timekeeping, we need to make sure what options are available. And that's what the bidders, the suppliers can provide that. And we look at those and score and stick with the best values and how to grow with the state. So now with that being said, we're at a point where we're trying to compete that. There's a potential solicitation. But for you, each of you, to be involved in the opportunities, we're going to talk about establishing OHID. Everybody will start to hear more about this OHID across multiple platforms in the state of Ohio, because it's a unique identifier for each one of us as citizens, whether it's filling out our taxes, whether that's if you're a nurse and you have to submit certifications, your yearly requirements for that particular position, or even in a bidding on access, bidding on actual solicitations and getting access to those. So a key element of creating an OHID is that each person accessing Ohio Buys must have their own. You don't just create one for a whole bunch of people. Each person creates one because that just identifies who's coming in and out of the system and provide better transparency and more security around that. Now, if you're currently a supplier doing business, and I say that if you're receiving a check from the state of Ohio for services or goods you're already doing, you don't need to re-register in order to access Ohio Buys. There's a tile within your OHID app store, and I can share information where that is, but we're just going to focus on someone who's starting from scratch. So let's say you're a company of 5 people, everyone that in that company are going to be interacting with Ohio Buys. Each one of them would have to have an OHID to be able to be listed as a contact and within a assigned role. Now, if you determine that you're the only person within those 5 people, you would just be the only person needed to have an OHID. It's an important process to making sure that those people interacting with Ohio Buys, those people interacting with the solicitation process, for you and your company with the state of Ohio, be registered with an OHID to be associated. So now with that OHID, on our main homepage, which is ohiobuys.ohio.gov, there is an actual login to start that process. Clicking through there, 7 easy questions creates that user OHID and gives you access to log into Ohio Buys. Now we'll talk more about this in a few more slides, but this is our home page. You do not have to log in. I'll preface that now. You don't have to log in to view our page. Everything is publicly transparent. There's just certain things you have to log in to such as to submit your bid, to acknowledge that you're bidding on something. And we'll touch base on that here shortly. So once you're logging into Ohio Buys, you've created that OHID, you need to create an Ohio Buys profile. for your company, or maybe your company is just your name, or maybe it's James's Cleaning LLC, whatever that may be. We're going to have to create an actual profile for that. So important part of that profile is filling out your company information, where there may be basic company details, location, addresses, point of contact, additional contacts that could be associated to Ohio buys. We'll talk a couple slides about adding those contacts, what's important. Some additional information that's key is the counties served. Sometimes you can determine I'm a local person. I can't go outside of my county. I don't want any opportunities, or I'm not looking for anything that's outside of Cuyahoga, or maybe it's Muskingum, or even Hamilton County, wherever you may be. It's important to identify that if needed. And we're talking about commodity codes. Some of you may be working with federal government where there's NAICS codes, SIC codes. We're going to talk about our specific codes and populating that and making sure that your profile is built out with those commodity codes, because it's how we notify people. Based upon your profile, based upon your commodity codes, we have automatic notification within our application now that sends you emails to remind you that, oh, there's an opportunity coming up, whether it's consulting services, whether it's um, food services, what have you. Notifications are sent out during that. So we're talking a little bit about that, the importance of making sure that you have as many commodity codes that represent your business. So as I mentioned, adding contacts, it's very important, where each location needs a contact to access information and perform actions for that specific location. And that means, let's say, I'm going to use Sherwin-Williams for an example. If Sherwin-Williams is on today's call, they have over 300 locations in the state of Ohio. They would have to have a person in each location that identifies who's the contact there. Everyone gets a supplier head office location where everything starts there. So if you're a small business and it's just you, it's just you. You don't have to add anybody else. You don't have other locations yet. The goal is obviously to have more locations, but as your company grows, you can add more contacts and more locations. And what that helps is identify where the communications go. Whether they go to the head office, or whether they go to the particular our second location. Maybe we're in Columbus and the second location's in Cincinnati, and so it's important to add the contacts to your head office location and then focus on adding the right roles to those individuals. So adding the contacts, again, super important for that process to make sure the communications are being received for opportunities that are existing, or maybe even purchase orders that are being cut against the contract that you win eventually. So once you have your contacts, you've got your counties. Next thing you're looking at is adding and identifying the commodity codes. As I mentioned, we do use the United Nations Standard Products and Services Code, UNSPSC for short. And that's just a commodity designation that we use across all levels. Now, the reason I'm showing you this website is just a way to look out there and see what exactly your business does provide underneath the UNSPSC category, because there may be different numbers. For instance, I'm looking for janitorial supplies, and maybe I provide the carts, or maybe I provide the actual services. The category codes may be different for each one of those, and it's just a good way to make sure that you're covering all bases, because if you don't have the proper codes identified on your Ohio Buys profile, there could be missed automatic notifications for you being received from the system. So I don't know, hopefully I should have some time to go through the live demo and kind of highlight some of these for you to see that in real time. But this slide deck is just a real good indicator of how, just kind of the basic elements.
James, a
Yes.
question came through more towards like the Ohio ID. So Steve is saying I'm in the Ohio Military Reserves and I have an Oaks number. assuming I need to set up a new account with Ohio ID to get a new Oaks number?
Good question there. You're currently, I guess, I have to look at that because Oaks numbers and OHID numbers are all under the same umbrella, but just to what degree, I guess I can follow up with Steve with this and look into that to give a better answer if that's all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So again, once you've got an idea of what types of codes that your business provides for those particular goods and services, what you do is within your Ohio Bias profile is populate them. And this is just a good example of how the code breaks out into, I guess I call it the root system. At the top level, we have high level, an 8-digit number. The first 2 digits are the category. And as the category breaks down and gets finer and gets refined down to very specific items, that number, the less zeros do appear, as you can see in the screenshot. Now, you can determine, let's say you're into paper products, your business provides those, but maybe you just do writing or printing, or maybe within an aspect of that. Making sure you select the 1411s with the 4 zeros added to it. And that would, anything below that would be incorporated into that UNSPSC commodity code that would be on your profile. Now, again, that's the reason why I went to the UNSPSC website, because instead of a 1411, there may be another code as 6512 out there that represents paper products. And when our agencies go out and select the commodities, the specific things that they're looking for that are associated with the items, we have no guarantee which one is pulling that based upon what they're looking for. So it's always important to populate your commodity code selections that cover all bases. So that's a huge thing to remember. You don't have to select just one, but you can select as many that are applicable. If you have a long business line of products, perhaps it'll take you a few minutes to go through that. But if you just provide consulting services, there's just a box for the consulting services under our personal services breakdown that you can select and get notifications. So again, commodities drive the notification. So when an agency has a need for something, that a service or a good that you provide and you're registered, you'll get an automatic notification in your email to that specific person on your team that will be notified that there's an opportunity. So, and we'll talk here about if you don't have that actual specific commodity, but ideally you populate this as best you can. And you stay on top of it, because I know that as businesses grow and ebb and flow through the process, they may not offer all the products previously, but it's always important to update the commodity code. So once you're done populating your company profile, you've already got the OHID, you've associated that, you've got all your people or yourself identified as the administrator, or maybe the sourcing contract, the person who's going to get the notifications, you're set. Now, what do I do? How do I identify and view solicitations? Well, there's a couple of different ways. First way is by being registered, and is by getting that automatic notification. When you see here, when you're registered, you will receive that via an email inviting you to respond with an Ohio bias. And then maybe it's a consulting services. We'll just use that as an example. And we've sent that to you. And here's an opportunity that you might be interested based upon that category code. And then you click on the link, log in, apply, submit your bid, and wait for the response. Now, as I mentioned, let's say you didn't select a commodity code that you might have missed, or maybe you didn't know there was one for. You can at any time view the public solicitation page that contains all of the solicitations that are active in Ohio. But to actually respond to that, that's when you have to log in. So anytime, anywhere in the world, if you have the internet, you can view the public solicitations page. And to be able to find that, when I mentioned that OHID, that main home page, that particular box on the left, down the bottom, the public solicitations is an opportunity where you can see anything, whether that's an MBE, minority business enterprise set aside, where only those people who are certified by the Department of Development to have an opportunity with those set aside experiences, where 15% of all the state spend has to be set aside for that MBE and EDGE opportunities, as well as we do have a public catalog. You can look at pricing, current pricing. It's a great way to look at the items maybe you provide and kind of see what's been awarded, what's won in the past. You can look at the current public contracts. All the contracts that are current are actually out there on the website without having to log in or go behind the scenes and do that. It's a great opportunity to do some marketing research to understand what's coming. Maybe there's a particular service that you're providing or good, and the contract ends this June. And that gives you an idea like what the current price is, what the current information is, and that leads into the bottom button where it says public records. Public records, you have an opportunity to request information to at least see what the other bids were in the previous contract or other information that you're looking for. We do redact any trade secret information from companies. I will tell you, public records are a great way to help you understand the bidding process and where people may have made a great turn and won the contract, or maybe they missed a step and they didn't get that opportunity. But it's very important to be specific when you do public records requests. You can't just say, give me everything. You have to be specific what you're looking for. And we do have a public records team that reviews all that and provides that to you as soon as possible. So, but again, those are some great additional buttons for information to help you be a part of the process and put yourself forward as best you can. But the public solicitations, clicking on that opens up, as I mentioned, anything that's out there. So anything that could be a solicitation type from a request for a proposal, a reverse auction, a request for a quote, maybe even an invitation to bid, where now we do call some of these, there's another type we call quick quotes. Those are quick little items, intended to be a quick little purchase. Within the process, if we're looking for an air purifier, it's very specific. And
we have a question about how long does it take to receive a public records request? Like the information when you're requesting. Any idea on that? And
yeah, great
okay.
question. Sorry, I had a little cough there. I apologize. Yeah, public records request, it depends on how much information is requested, and it depends on how many other are in the queue. It just depends. There's a lot of factors that go into that. If you're asking for a lot of information, they have to review that. They have to redact the information that's trade secret or other information that's not applicable to the request to provide that to you. The turnaround is intended as soon as possible. It just depends on some of those factors within the request. I know that's not a straight answer, but there's a lot of variables that do go into the public records review request process and the document turnover. So I hope that it helps answer that. But again, it's important to be specific, because if you're not specific in your records request, that delays some of the process. And sometimes it doesn't get fulfilled, because if I want everything, it's really we can't give you everything because we don't know what to give you. What is everything? So always be specific about your requesting, and we do as fast as we can. It just depends on the volume. So I hope that helps, Terrence. So when you look at the actual results, if you click on that public solicitations, like I said, you can be anywhere on the internet, just click that and you can see what's out there. Top of the line, just in this example, far right column, you'll see an MB set aside. Um, Even though those are set aside, you can see them. You have to be a registered MBE supplier, certified through the state, um, through the Department of Development to be able to bid on those. So something if you're interested in the Department of Development, it's part of the extra additional links I have at the end of the slide deck here. So a lot of options to search. You can search by keyword, you can search by commodities, start dates. Maybe you heard about the Department of Development or Department of Corrections was having a solicitation out for new security fence, and that's what your company does. You can just search by those goods or services. Maybe the contracting entity, that would be the agency that's looking for that. But the best thing to look for to use is the keywords. Put in the word fences, IT services, consulting, and that will provide a lot larger of a return versus trying to be specific and type a bunch of words. I always tell everyone, cast with a large net and then work your way down. Because if you cast a small net, it just takes a longer time to find what you're looking for, and you can get frustrated by not turning up what you need. It's easier to have more information and then pare that down, um, looking for that. But it's pretty robust, pulls back a lot of information of all those current ones that are out there. Now, once you find something that you're interested in, you open that actual solicitation opportunity. In this case, we've got an overhead door, windows, and personal door repairs. We're looking for those. It tells you the date that it actually begins. It tells you the end date of the bidding process that you have to be able to submit the bid. It's very important to look at those dates because if you submit after, the system won't let you. We used to do a paper process where you'd bring them into our location here in Columbus, drop them off at our desk. A big rubber stamp would be stamped on whether the time was appropriate. And then in this case, if you look at the end date, it says noon. If you came at 12:01, we would not accept the bid because it had to be received by 12 o'clock. So electronically makes it great. So you can be anywhere and submit that, but still you have to get it in before the end date. Additional information, such as MBE set aside if that's an opportunity, contract documentation, there could be details of terms and conditions. There could be site visit requirements. We've had quite a few solicitations where the agency wants you to come see what they're doing. A few months back, there was up Lake Erie, they were doing a dredging and one of the canals. One of the requirements for solicitation stated in the actual document said you must attend this particular site visit so you can see what we're doing and what's expected to be able to provide those bids. Sometimes not attending can be detrimental to not submitting, being able to submit that potential winning bid. Additional information that can be provided too, it could be, here's a contact information. We do training information links in there, where to go get training documents if you're not sure about a process, who to contact within that. So a lot of key information is provided. And what additional information, as I mentioned, there could be the contract. It's like, this is what is expected of you if you win the contract. Here's our terms and conditions of payments. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. There may be additional attachments that are like instructions, what you have to do, what documents, and things of that nature. So it's always important to read through the documents, understand them, to be able to make sure you can put in a solid bid. Because if you maybe an attachment 2 in the standard terms and conditions, it asks you to provide a list of past employment references. And when you go to submit, you thought you submitted everything, but you didn't read that and you missed that, and you would not be a responsible bidder putting in that information and could potentially impact your your opportunity. So always read all the document and information to make sure you know what's expected of you in this submission. So you've made a decision. I'm interested in this opportunity, but I've got some questions. I'm not quite sure if they want me to do this or they want me to do that. So within the Ohio Buys platform, sending inquiries is a great opportunity. You don't have to pick up the phone. It takes some of the effort off of us to tell you that we can't talk to you on the phone because we can't give anyone any unfair advantage. We do point everyone through the inquiry process. Each solicitation should have a window that you can submit questions for a clarification. Can I give you, you're asking for an ES11 Dell laptop. Can I give you an ES12? Is that fine? Is that acceptable? You may maybe be able to ask additional questions like um, maybe it's about a site visit. Maybe you need more details to provide in your bid. Anyone can compose a new message, and within our history, it's tracked. So you put in a question, and whether in this example, will the lottery please provide the location of the site visits that it will occur June 15th through July 15th. So the purpose of that is so anyone who's looking to submit a bid has the information to submit to understand what's being expected. So there's, again, no unfair opportunity that maybe you called me on the phone and I'm like, oh yeah, it's this and it's that. And then this is how it works. And someone could find out if you said you talked to James and then they said, well, James gave you an unfair advantage and I'm going to protest that because that's not fair. We use this opportunity to put it out there for everyone to view, to read through and give everyone the best opportunity in the bidding process. So anytime there's a question, now the period of time is important to look at too, because within that inquiry period, the bid opportunity, let's say it's open for 30 days. The inquiry period may be half of that time because it takes some time to review that and make sure that everyone has the information and time to submit the necessary documentation. So always keep an eye out on the dates. Each agency has different expectations on when their bids will open and close. So it's always important to look at those dates for the inquiry period to make sure your questions are answered. So you've got a question, you've got an answer here, now you're ready to respond to this solicitation. So submitting a response, this is where you've got that OHID, you're associated to the company, your administrator, you, if that's just you and you're the only one, you got the role, you have to log in to actually provide that that bid. So now
James.
yes.
Okay, so we got a question about the Ohio ID.
Mhm.
Steve would like to know when I log into the Ohio ID, what section or app would be select to find the bids?
It's called the Ohio Buys tile. When you go into OHID, you go to the App Store and you'll be looking for Ohio Buys. And once you add that, that'll log you in. Or again, you can go to procureohio.gov and link
Okay.
from there, or ohiobuys.ohio.gov, and that'll take you to that main public page where the same information's on both sides of the
That's
access.
ohiobuys.ohio.gov.
That is correct.
I'll put that in here. And then uh, Betsy is asking, are all municipalities within Ohio obligated to use the state system for solicitations?
Great question, Betsy.
Okay.
It's an opportunity that they have. Right now, the ones that are posting solicitations, bid opportunities are mainly the state agencies. We do have a small number of public subdivision members that are using what we call a public notice that they can post those opportunities. Some of our outreach and effort we're working on this year is to try to help give them that information so they can leverage Ohio buys and put those solicitations in there. So when you as a supplier or future bidder on something don't have to track down multiple avenues to look for opportunities, it can all be in one pot. That's our goal, to really provide that support for all of our municipalities, villages, townships, et cetera, to help leverage the system so they can get more bids and not just local, they can have a wider response. And you can see that from a supplier side and say, oh, I didn't know they needed that. I can provide that for them. So, but right now there's not a lot of involvement with that, but we're working on trying to encourage them to use this application. But great question. We're trying to get as many people involved in this process as possible. So you've made the decision, you've got the email that you clicked on the link, you've reviewed everything, you want to submit a response. Couple easy clicks along the way. You have to accept that you're going to bid on this opportunity. You have to provide the bid, the actual numbers, and maybe there's multiple items that it's for. You have to, it's a spreadsheet, we call it a grid. You can go through and put information for each line that you're looking to bid on. One of the benefits too is that you can collaborate with other people in your business. Say, I need to bring some more people in to assist with that response to that solicitation. So just some additional functionality that's there. Once you've completed your response, you get to see a little confirmation flag stating that it's been submitted. It's associated with a time, date, stamp. And anytime during your profile and your submission, your profile, you'll be able to see the history that you actually responded to this particular solicitation. It's kind of your proof of record, your receipt for that. So when you submit that response, as I mentioned, general view of the submission process, you got to agree to the terms and conditions that you can confirm that you're going to intend to bid on this. Now you can remove that, no big deal, but it just system asks you to accept that you're moving forward. You do have to respond to the questionnaire tabs and item grids. There's questions or responses of documents and or prices that you're providing. And here's where you attach any additional requested information. We have lots of suppliers who submit everything 3 or 4 times. It's important to follow the steps, making sure you include the documents. Sometimes people don't include even the right documents, even though they include it 3 times. So it's important those items that you reviewed in the beginning of the actual solicitation, they're included at this point. Because once you get to the point of hitting submit, and if you don't submit all the documents, you have to go back in and add those. But if you don't submit those additional documents and the bid closes and you don't have everything, they won't be able to complete your review of your bid submission because you won't have all the necessary documents to meet the requirements of moving to the next step. So always important to review what's in the solicitation so you can provide that information and submit your proposal on time, because as most of us know, life happens, the computer crashes, the power goes out, the snow falls until we're in the snow apocalypse and we can't get anywhere, we can't get there. Always submit on time, because if there's nothing that we can do unless there is something on our end that our system goes down or our system crashes, that's really the only thing. And even then, it's important to make sure you submit it on time. So, and when I say on time, if it's a day early, ideal, because maybe there's something you forgot reviewing your documents. Oh, I got to add that, and it just gives you a better opportunity to be successful in that bidding opportunity. So, again, as I mentioned, accepting that you're going to move forward, but there's not easy opportunity just to withdraw your response. It's just removing that response. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cause any downstream, oh, they bid, but then they redacted that. It's just a matter of maybe As clarifications came in, as I mentioned, the inquiries, you bid on it at first. It was within the scope of what you could do. And now with clarifications, maybe it's not really what you think you can provide, or maybe it's outside of the ability of your business. No harm, no foul. It's just a matter of gives you the opportunity to withdraw. So once you've submitted, we go through an evaluation process. Bids are certified and reviewed. They're reviewed for document completion, as I mentioned, making sure everything's been submitted that's been requested. Unfortunately, bidders cannot communicate with the state office agency regarding that solicitation during this time.
James,
Yes.
we do have a
Okay.
question.
I missed one.
Terrence wants to know, can you adjust your pricing? Like once
Yeah.
you submitted your bid?
Yeah, you can adjust that. You can update that information. Yes, you can. So yeah, you thought like, yeah, like as I mentioned, some inquiries came in and someone said, oh, we can give that as an option instead of what you asked for. It's kind of a gray area in the request. Oh, great. Maybe that's an opportunity. I'm going to lower my price. Perhaps it's an opportunity to do that, and you can edit as long as it doesn't, you can't edit it once the bid closes. So at noon, and the bid closes at noon, you're trying to get in there at 11:59 and you're starting to click through. Once it hits noon, the system won't, even though you're in there, it won't complete the transaction because you didn't click the submit button before noon. So that's what I always say. Even if you're going to change something, update something, withdraw, make any changes, always do it way before the 11th hour. So, but once that bid has been submitted, we can review that. Nothing we can, if you have my phone number and you're calling me, like, am I winning? Am I winning? I can't say anything. I'm unable to respond during that period of time. But once I do get to make the decision that this is exactly what we're doing, this is our next step. As I mentioned earlier, the invitation to bid is awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So if you're the person who submitted the best price, the lowest price, and you submitted all the documentations, you're providing the actual widget or service that I need, you will be the winner. And then a PO gets cut. And I guess when it says in the content here, awarded a contract, and those invitations to bids, those one quick purchases, the PO purchase order kind of acts as the contract. It gets cut and it gets sent to you via email. And next thing you know, we'll be looking for that good or service to be provided within that time period. And once we received, the state pays accordingly. Now, for the RFPs, those requests for proposals, as I indicated, they're part of a review process and they have to go through a best value. So the determination may take longer, may take even months to even review the technical documents if we're looking for a large statewide timekeeping systems, for instance. Projects proposals can be reviewed for multiple months because there's so much intricacy that goes on with that. And then they have to review the cost evaluation. There's a whole list of internal processes to get to that best value of the state. So Mikey, on your question, so yeah, if you're the person who won, you get the actual notification email, the purchase order cut to you and your business. But say you didn't, let's say you were a penny off from being that person, you could go to Ohio Buys and the system and the public contracts, as I mentioned, and look to see who won. Do we get an email if we don't win? Unfortunately, there's no email that says you did not win. You would have to review that process, go on to the website, and then look for that particular solicitation, and then see who that was awarded to. Now, if you're interested on exactly maybe how they did that, that's where that public records request came in. You can request some additional documentation from that process. But again, once an invitation to bid has been awarded to you as a supplier, everyone can see that in Ohio Buys as the contract that is currently withstanding. A good question, because a lot of times our goal is to increase everyone coming in and bidding, but also certain things you have to go out and look, but we can't put everything on the site to let you know exactly all the details on that unless you ask for those. So, real quick review. The state of Ohio has to purchase a particular good or service. We can't just come out to you and ask you to provide that. We have to go through our internal review to make sure our requisite programs can provide it. And if they can't, we have to look at the current contracts that we've negotiated with other suppliers to see if they can meet that need. If those two items aren't able to be fulfilled, then that's when we can put out a new solicitation opportunity, whether it's an ITB or an RFP for that good or service. So, and that's where you get to have your profile properly populated with the commodity code information. So when we go out to solicit that, you'll get notified to be able to respond to that if you're interested. Notifications are broad, so you may be able to, maybe it's not something you're interested in at this time, or you get to make that determined. Or if you're just looking on the website, there's a lot of opportunity out there that maybe it's a growth area. So when that happens, we go through the review process. If you've submitted the information as required on a timely basis with all the necessary documentation, and it's the lowest bid, you're the winner. But as I mentioned for RFPs, those may take a little bit of time where they focus on the best value. So what I covered today, here's some additional resources, kind of a takeaway. I think I have a few minutes to jump into the website to kind of show you what it looks like in person. But the next few slides are just kind of those links of information of where to go. Our procureohio.gov site has a specific section for bidders and suppliers, whether you are doing business with the state or you're hoping to do business with the state at some point. We've got a host of resources of information of how to sell to the state, kind of what the state buys. As I mentioned, some of the things that went through this presentation, how to submit a response. We've got training documentation, we've got videos, we have webinars, and we have a support desk that people, my team, are responsible for answering questions and helping navigate some of those experiences. But some of the additional resource links that are important for you to take away are just some of these here. Each one of these, again, if you're interested in being a MBE certified business, you'd have to work with the Department of Development. Their link is there within the Minority Business Information team. The Ohio Interactive Budget there shows you what's being purchased across the state at all levels and commodity areas. The Ohio political subdivisions are a great resource as well, where perhaps you're looking to do business while you're waiting for an opportunity to come up. There are a lot of additional political subdivision areas, 88 counties. Within each county, there's K through 12, townships, villages, fire departments, local libraries that are opportunities to reach out to see if they're interested in your services. So a lot of information here that can provide additional resources that you're looking for. In addition to today's webinar, kind of the next step, this is kind of high level overview of information just to kind of like get you thinking like what the next steps are, how does this work? We do, if you get your OHID and you go to Ohio Buys and you've got a profile, you're not sure of the next steps, you're just starting to get busy, started busy with that process. We do have a webinar series that runs every month, and good timing because this Friday, February the 13th, we start with our first accessing and navigating Ohio Buys, which takes it a lot further than what I did today. So if you're more interested in that, tune in on Friday through our link here, I think. But again, procureohio.gov has that information with that bidder and supplier webinar links that are available. And then next Friday, we have, you're moving along, you understand how to access it, you're navigating well. that opportunity pops up and you want to put a bid in. We talk through the process and walk through the details of how to respond to that Ohio buys opportunity for your potential bid submission. So, and then we are going into an upgrade. So everything that you're going to be seeing in the application is getting better, better user interface that helps it more intuitive to be able to search, to be able to find things, communicate with state agencies and those solicitations out there. And we're going to be having a lot more webinars of those improvements coming in the latter part of late February into March, and communications on our website. And I think, Mike, you said, where can I find these trainings? If you go to procureohio.gov, there underneath the bidders and suppliers header, you'll see training and resources, and there's a webinar series that those links are going to be there. And if you have questions, obviously outside of today, you can reach out to your local members that are putting on this presentation. But if you've made it farther along and you have questions, you can reach out to us at our contact center, or give us a call. It routes to our team members that can help walk you through perhaps a question you're running into, maybe the OHID or your profile. You have questions on that, we're here to help and walk you through to help you to success.
James,
So, yes.
Marina had a question. Are you going to be in this presentation going over anything in Ohio Pays, or are there any other trainings in the future that will go over Ohio Pays?
Unfortunately, no. Ohio Pays, our team at OBM, the Office of Budget Management, manages that application. I know they do have on their website, through Ohio Pays, they can do office hours if you have questions, but that's how they focus their training. I think it's a great opportunity to try to blend some of that Ohio Pays, because if you're a current supplier, Ohio buys, Ohio Pays are tied together at a certain level. So I've been thinking about it. So it's a great question to bring that full circle and then start to look to see if we can add that in future trainings. But today, no, I can't offer any Ohio Pays directions at this time. Sorry about that. All right, and I do have some time, like 10 minutes or so, to go through the web. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Mhm.
All right, let me just move a couple screens here.
And James, is there, because the hyperlinks in the presentation, they can't click on that. Is there like a direct link to the trainings that you were talking about that we can put in the chat? Or where could they get that to register for those trainings?
I'll show that in the I'll jump to the live system. All the links, if we're able to share this presentation, all the links work, but obviously they don't work in this format, unfortunately. That'd be pretty cool though if we could just in a
And
live.
we'll post the presentation on the Apex Accelerator of the
Okay.
Ohio. Yeah.
All right, just give me a second here. Let me switch screens here.
Yeah, James, if you could forward that over to myself and Jill and Chanda, I can get it uploaded to the website.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Let me just, like I said, switch screens here, so everyone can see that. And all right, should be seeing our procureohio.gov website. All right, now this is the main, I know that there could be different points of view. Ohio Business Gateway, there could be Ohio Pays, there could be a host of different ways to get to everything in the state. It's always good to have multiple ways, but it can be a little confusing. So I always like to point people here because this is our page. A little self-promotion, but Department of Administrative Services, Procurement Services. So as I mentioned in the header, the bidder and suppliers, is where you want to go. You can scroll down and there's general information about procurement, learning about Ohio buys, public solicitations, contracts. There are links to the landing spots within each one of these that you can take to get there. And I guess to highlight another thing, if you're looking for a public records request, there's a direct link from there as well. So we're going to look at public solicitations. We're going to but I'm going to show you the bidder and suppliers first. So you just click on the header and that will open up all those particular widgets. Within each of these tile, there's more information. I'm just going to touch on Ohio Buys training just to make sure you can see that. So we do have FAQs, some tips. We have plenty of learner guides that go step by step through the whole process, building a profile, accessing, submitting bids, even more advanced transaction steps within the application once a supplier is receiving those POs and receiving payments against those goods and services that they're providing. We do have video overviews. If you're just more of a auditory and visual learner, just watching something and listening to it. But our bidder and suppliers webinar, as I mentioned, the link is just right there. So easy to get to. Now, there isn't any pre-registration required. So put on your Outlook calendar, Friday, February the 13th, this Friday, let's say at 9:55, log in your computer, get to this page. All I have to do is click the link and that will launch a Teams training that we do live. We do Q&A to help walk through that process, but we'll walk you through all the steps. It's about an hour long when there's very specific access points and navigating that. So it's a great resource. As I mentioned too, we're going to start looking at upgrade webinars. We'll pause on our general monthly ones during the month of March, but we'll pick back up with the same cadence. We run these at least once a month for those people who are looking for that type of intro overview. So great resource to have for that. A couple of different navigation points. You can click on this little breadcrumb. You can go back and forth. And as I mentioned, the learner guides, they're PDFs. They get updated. As you can see, like version 5.8, we go through lots of iterations of that. So we're always changing, always updating it to reflect the current system, issues that people may have. We also have additional job aids that can walk you through a very specific task, submitting public records requests. And these are just PDFs that pop up on your page. So if you're a downloader and you want to hold on to a document, it's important to know that their Ohio Buys Bidder and Supplier Learner Guide may go through an update in a month and might be a rather large update that might bump it up, and some of the tasks or some of the functionalities may not be represented in your desktop that's on your desktop. So just keep that in mind. So great resources for that training information to provide step by step. Like I said, just a quick pop-up here. Walks you through how to do everything from a new bidder. If you're a person that's a supplier and you have an Ohio Pays account and you're receiving checks, shows you how to add the app in the App Store to manage your contacts, selecting those commodities. Is things we went over today, but it goes way in deeper on that process. So it's a great resource to have and look at when you're walking through a process. All right, so we talked about the supplier webinars. Again, no registration, no cost, live Q&A. And then, Mikey, I'll answer that question just a second here. I'll wrap up with that. So again, when you're ready, just click and join. Again, these run monthly. The United Nations, as we mentioned, all you do is, let's just use janitorial. And as you can see, as just by typing in janitorial, it breaks out the commodity codes and shows me different areas. and as I mentioned, what's really important under F and then J for services, there's a 7,600 and then, or a 47 and a 76. So an agency may be asking for cleaning and janitorial services with a 76 commodity code where you have a 4712. So it's important to make sure you can use this as a good baseline when you go into your Ohio buys information to make sure that you've got all the right commodity codes to reflect that. So just a quick little example of that. Again, that's to help you when you go to your actual, we call it the supplier portal, whether you're a supplier or bidder in this process, you get to create that. This is where a lot of information will be. Once you create that profile, maybe there's purchase orders you're receiving that you've won a contract and we're asking you once a month for those particular services. And maybe there's validations. Maybe you need to acknowledge that we sent you something, or there's communications back and forth. A lot of resources are in this page. But up here at the top, was we talked about the company profile. It's always a little slower in the training environment here.
James, while that is kind of updating,
Yep.
a couple questions came in. Can you elaborate on how they're able to get on a DAS contract because there is no information you're saying out there?
That's correct. It's kind of like what I'm doing today is kind of showing you how the process works, how we have to jump over those hurdles to use those current things in place. Once an opportunity exists that an agency needs something, we're going to post that solicitation on our website. If you're registered with that commodity code, you're going to get notified. And that's where the ball is in your court to provide the best bid possible to win the award. There are some specific contracts that we do have. State term schedules. Perfect timing, Kimberly. Where you can actually, a state term schedule was different between our state contracts and our state term schedules is that STSs, as we call them, are negotiated pricing. They're favorable pricing where once we receive those on an STS, we have to request multiple responses, additional bids from those on the STS. So if there are 5 or 50 people, businesses on an STS, that specific thing, let's use furniture, for example, they have to respond to that. We have to get additional pricing because again, it's negotiated, it's never been competed. So we take that next step and make minimum suppliers, say we add all 50 to the list, we have to receive responses from at least a handful of people to make sure we're competing that process, because that's make sure we're being transparent with state taxpayer dollar money. So
James?
yes.
Okay. Were you finished with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Terrence had a question regarding the codes. Can you update the codes in real time?
If we're talking about commodity codes, yes, you can go into your profile every day and change that. If that's what you're looking for, Terrence, I think, yeah, there isn't real time. You don't have to wait for the next day for it to batch overnight and save to the server. It happens once you hit the save button or you delete something. That's where you are in real time managing that profile.
Okay, and Steve's question, when bidding for a promotional item, do you advise breaking out all costs or balling up the price of the item, plus the setup charge, plus the shipping charge, and putting it in as one total price?
Gotcha. So when we put out the bid, unless it's specifically called out, it's kind of like the price is the price, and it's like whether it's how would you say, you provide the best cost, you're kind of including that price in that bid, if that makes sense. I know now there are some things that do are part of required of shipping, but overall you would respond to that bid with like, if I'm taking all that into consideration, what's the best bid I could do to win that for what it costs to ship something somewhere or to have something delivered. Does that help? Does that make sense, hopefully, Steve? Probably
Not
not, huh?
so well, I just again, I mean, right, because in our industry there's all kinds of games that are played, right, where people
Mhm.
will I can give you the absolute best cost on the actual product, but there's a setup fee and there's shipping. So what I just put, if I don't see anything that says, hey, put the freight in there or the shipping in there, then yeah, my price is going to look really, really low if I just put the cost of goods, but I don't want to get pinched where I make a mistake and put that in. And then when I send you an invoice, there's, $100 shipping charge, and the state comes back and says, well, you didn't have that on there. So I can do it either way. I just, you know, if I ball the setup fee and the shipping in there, then what would normally be a $2 item maybe now looks like a $5 item. And I'd hate to lose on that fact alone. It's like, wait a minute, guys, like my price is only like $2 for the item.
I agree. I would say there's a lot of different types of contracts, and to answer that specifically, I'd probably have to look as if it's requested or how that's spelled out in the pricing. Perhaps to your point, I can get some more information. If you drop your email, I can grab that and give you a better response, because it takes more things in consideration, if you don't mind.
Okay, he has his email, and we can send that to you also. I'm copying it,
Okay, thank you.
James. And then Paulo has a great question. It looks like his company he's in Pennsylvania. So just wants to know if his company can register well, he has the Pennsylvania Apex for Ohio buys. You don't have to register for Ohio buys through your Apex, but if somebody is in another state, can they register with Ohio buys?
Most definitely. I worked with the supplier a couple months ago. They were from the state of Washington. So they were putting bids in. So we have people across that put international bids in on items. They're trying to, from Great Britain. A few months back, one of my team members had talked about that. They were looking to bid on those items because anywhere there's internet and you have a business and you want to do business with the state of Ohio, you just have to go through certain things to make sure you're registered, and you can be from Pennsylvania and bid on all the things that we have up there through Ohio Buys. So there's no limitation on that. Just double checking all the questions here. And
I'm watching
okay,
watching that for you, so you don't
okay,
have to.
no worries.
Okay.
All right, so back to your company information. As I mentioned, it's important just putting the basic information, whether your address label, you could put additional information. The ones that are required are pre-populated. You could add, if you wanted to add additional information, such as your website or maybe you're founded. It's not required, but it's just part of that process. If you are an MBE set aside, you will have a status in your profile that will populate. You don't enter it. It's part of that department development certification process. They populate it on the back end for that. But as for contacts, there can be lots of different contacts in your group. As I mentioned, at the head office, everyone has to be at the head office. We have different types of people that may be the supplier admin, maybe it's the contract contact. Once you have that contract, there's a person you want just to deal with that. A revenue share contact, a sourcing invitation. That's a new role. That is something where instead of everyone getting the information about the event, you can identify Kurt or James and say, James, you get all those invitation emails. You can handle that. Let us know if we need any additional stuff. So you can set up your company with as many people as you have and need to, or you can just keep it yourself as just a supplier admin. And roles are easy to add. And then delete things, just clicking on the X removes that from that information. So, so again, making sure the people in your business, especially yourself, and have the right information set up to be able to. Now, if people change in your company, say you're a decent sized company and there's always turnover, you have to stay on top of this internal contacts information because James may have left the company last month and he's the person gets all the emails and no one else is getting the emails. We missed out on those opportunities because we didn't know because we weren't maintaining that. So something to keep yourself reminded on that. Additional information, that's where we talk about the commodity codes. As I mentioned, there's a long list of items to select. And when you select those and you've made a decision on janitorial, that's your item. Just give it a second here. But again, some of the demographics that you're seeing too on this page, those are just extras, they're not required. But anything with a red asterisk is most applications, that's the thing that has to be required. So as we mentioned, whether it's paper materials, a couple options, you could click the plus button. It breaks it out into 3 major categories that are available. Then you can just kind of break it out and so forth and so on. There's a little cool function. If you just want you do everything paper, all you have to do is click that and it fills everything out so you don't miss an opportunity. It incorporates everything into a commodity that you would provide on it. And that would be for everything. As you go down the list, you can easily just deselect and close. And that will add, let's say, just close, and all those specific commodities get added. So in real time, you just click and add, and then they're there. And if a solicitation gets sent out in the next hour, your information would be triggered to be included in the email distribution, and you would get notified. So
James, we have about 5 minutes
okay.
left, and there is another question that came through.
Excellent.
And Donald, I don't know. So is there an app for this? Is there an app for, if you could be more specific, Donald?
Yeah, I would say there isn't an app like on an app store at this moment. It is just the website. The URL is our app. If if I'm interpreting that right, Donald.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So again, thanks for all the opportunity to speak about this. Questions, information is in the slide deck will be sent out. And I can follow up with anybody who has a specific question maybe. Once the chat closes, we'll be closed. But procureohio.gov is our landing page for all of our procurement information, for training resources, educational connections, how we do things, as well as ohiobuys.ohio.gov is our landing page for the actual solicitations, the contracts that are already existing that you can go look at and review anytime, anywhere to understand what next opportunities are out there for you. So thanks again. Thanks everyone who attended today. I appreciate all your time and your comments and your questions. It's been a great time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, James. Great presentation, lots of great information for people to get engaged in doing business with the state of Ohio. And so again, just as we wrap up and closing out, today's presentation is being recorded. That recording is going to be posted on the Ohio Apex Accelerator at Ohio University's website. Sharon, if you can go ahead and post that link, the website in the chat again. Once you're on the Apex's website, you can go to I believe the resources tab at the top of the page, and then click on the training tab after that. Thanks so much. So if you looked at apex.ohio.edu, then click on the resources tab at the top of the page, and then click on training after that. Also, our next training after this, we do have a training next week, next Wednesday, which is February, is that 18th? Wednesday, February 18th, in the morning, doing business with ODOT. At 10 o'clock. So if you're interested in that webinar and you aren't registered, please go ahead and go to the Apex website and register. And then in March, we will be having an in-person training of doing business with local governments and with transit authorities. And that will be in person at the State Library, I believe March 18th. You can also sign up and register for that on Apex website. So this has been a great webinar training, and we hope that you can join us for the other sessions. Again, thank you so much. I think that is it. And also, our largest training and our largest procurement in-person training that we do is the Ohio Business Matchmaker will be April 22nd and April 23rd in Dayton, Ohio. So it's always a great time. If you're looking to do business with the state, cities, counties, federal government, that's a great event that you definitely don't want to miss. The save the date should be coming out. So definitely want to make sure that you don't miss out on that. I think that's it. Again, thanks for your time today, and we hope that you can join us in the future. But everybody have a great day, and we will hopefully see you at the next training. All right, bye-bye. Thanks again, James. You did a great job today.